Donald Trump called Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, his closest ally in the entire Middle East and said, "You're fucking crazy. You'd be in prison if it weren't for me. I'm saving your ass. Everybody hates you now. Everybody hates Israel because of this." This is Donald Trump, screaming at Israel, not at Iran, not at Russia, not at China, at Israel. The same Israel he moved the U.S. embassy for. The same Israel he called his greatest ally. The same Netanyahu he stood next to at Mar-a-Lago just 6 months ago, smiling for cameras. That relationship just exploded on a phone call. And the entire world is trying to figure out, what does this mean? Because if Donald Trump is done protecting Netanyahu, nobody is. Here's exactly what happened, and why it changes everything. A ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon had already been announced just days earlier. A fragile truce. A deal brokered largely thanks to U.S. diplomatic pressure. But Netanyahu, despite that ceasefire, escalated anyway. Israeli airstrikes leveled buildings in Beirut, not just military targets, entire buildings, in attempts to eliminate individual Hezbollah commanders. The civilian casualty reports started flooding in. And Trump, watching from Washington, lost it. According to Axios, which broke the story and cited 2 separate U.S. officials, Trump called Netanyahu in an expletive-laden phone call. One official described it as one of the most contentious conversations between the 2 leaders since Trump returned to the White House in January 2025. And then came the words that stunned the world. "You're effing crazy. You'd be in prison if it weren't for me. I'm saving your ass. Everybody hates you now. Everybody hates Israel because of this." Another source confirmed that at one point, Trump literally yelled at Netanyahu, "What the F are you doing?" Multiple sources, multiple officials, all saying the same thing. This was real. Now, some of you might be thinking, Trump has always been Israel's biggest supporter. He moved the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem. He brokered the Abraham Accords. He called Netanyahu a close ally. So why the rage? 2 words: Iran deal. Here's the bigger picture most media isn't explaining clearly enough. Right now, the United States and Iran are in the middle of sensitive nuclear negotiations, trying to reach a preliminary peace agreement, something Trump is desperately trying to claim as a historic foreign policy win. But Iran had just suspended those talks. Why? Because Israel, Netanyahu's Israel, kept bombing Lebanon. Iran told U.S. negotiators, "We will not continue talks while Israel is conducting strikes on Hezbollah in Lebanon." In other words, Netanyahu's military decisions were actively blowing up Trump's biggest diplomatic prize. That's why Trump was pissed. That's why he steamrolled Netanyahu. That's why, for the first time in decades, an American president publicly distanced himself from Israeli military action. Trump even told ABC News afterwards, "There was a little glitch today, but I turned that one around very quickly." A glitch. He called the Israeli military bombing of Beirut a glitch. Now, how did Netanyahu respond? Not quietly. On social media, Netanyahu posted, "I spoke with President Trump and told him, if Hezbollah does not cease attacking our cities and citizens, Israel will attack terror targets in Beirut. This stance of ours remains unchanged." Unchanged. He literally said his stance is unchanged, hours after reportedly being screamed at by the President of the United States. This is Benjamin Netanyahu, who is currently facing a massive domestic political crisis back home. The Israeli parliament, the Knesset, is on the verge of being dissolved. 106 members of Knesset voted to disband parliament. Elections may happen as early as September 2026. Netanyahu is fighting for his political survival, and now, his most powerful international ally is publicly humiliating him. But here's what's interesting, and many analysts are pointing this out. Netanyahu may actually need this conflict to keep going. Active war equals political survival. A ceasefire deal on U.S. terms equals political weakness at home. So when Trump calls him crazy, Netanyahu might be calculating that he can absorb that, because the alternative, backing down completely, might cost him the election. Let's zoom out and understand Lebanon and Hezbollah in this equation. Hezbollah, the militant group backed by Iran, has been firing rockets into northern Israel, Israeli towns, Israeli civilians. This has been going on for months. U.S. officials themselves confirmed that Trump is aware Hezbollah has been firing repeatedly at Israel and that Israel has a right to respond. So Trump is not saying Israel shouldn't defend itself. What he's saying is, the scale of the response has gone too far. Specifically, the IDF, Israeli Defense Forces, have been demolishing entire buildings in Beirut to kill individual Hezbollah commanders. Trump reportedly objected to exactly this, the disproportionate destruction of civilian infrastructure. And here's the geopolitical chess game happening simultaneously. Hezbollah had received a partial truce offer from the U.S. We'll keep Beirut safe from strikes if you stop attacking northern Israel. Hezbollah initially rejected it. But by Monday evening, after Trump's intervention, Hezbollah reportedly agreed to a U.S.-brokered mutual cessation of attacks. Trump then posted on Truth Social, "All shooting will stop." Neither side immediately confirmed it, but Trump, characteristically, declared victory anyway. Here's what makes this even more dramatic. This is not the first time Trump has exploded at Netanyahu in 2025 and 2026. This is part of a growing pattern. Back in May 2025, before the wider Iran conflict even escalated, reports from NBC News and multiple U.S. officials revealed that Netanyahu was worried about any deal Trump might make with Iran. Israel has always wanted the U.S. to take a maximalist position against Iran. Regime change, military pressure, no negotiations. But Trump, the dealmaker, wanted a negotiated agreement. More economic leverage, less war. The two men were already quietly clashing behind the scenes. Then came the 12-day war, June 2025, when U.S. and Israeli forces struck Iranian nuclear facilities, Iran retaliated, and a ceasefire was brokered on June 24, 2025. But the ceasefire was always fragile. It was set to expire February 2026, and now, in June 2026, we're living through the aftermath of that expired deal. One senior foreign policy analyst from Foreign Policy magazine put it bluntly this week. If Iran makes a real ceasefire in Lebanon a condition of any U.S.-Iran agreement, Trump will not hesitate to force Netanyahu to stand down. Netanyahu will have no choice but to comply. The U.S.-Israel relationship is being rewritten in real time, and Trump, not Israel, is holding the pen. Let's talk about the bigger consequences, because this isn't just about two men arguing on a phone call. 1. Iran's next move. Iran suspended nuclear talks over this exact issue. If Israel continues bombing Lebanon, Iran walks away from the table. That means the window for a diplomatic solution to Iran's nuclear program closes. And that takes the world one step closer to a much bigger conflict. 2. Israel's international isolation. Trump wasn't wrong when he said everybody hates Israel now. That's not just emotion, that's a geopolitical reality. The Abraham Accords, Trump's signature Middle East achievement from his first term, were designed to normalize Arab-Israeli relations. But sustained civilian casualties in Lebanon and Gaza are making it politically impossible for Arab governments to maintain that normalization. 3. Netanyahu's political future. With the Israeli parliament moving toward dissolution and early elections possibly in September 2026, Netanyahu is governing under existential political pressure. A U.S. president who publicly calls you crazy and ungrateful is not a political asset. He is a liability. And 4. Trump's legacy play. Trump wants to be the president who ended the Iran conflict, the president who brought peace to the Middle East. If Netanyahu blows that up, Trump will not protect him. Not politically, not diplomatically. The alliance has a price, and Netanyahu is testing its limits. So, what are we left with? A U.S. president screaming expletives at an Israeli prime minister. A ceasefire that may or may not hold. Iran nuclear talks hanging by a thread. An Israeli government on the verge of collapse. And a Middle East where nobody, not even America's closest ally, knows exactly where the red lines are anymore. The world is watching. The stakes have never been higher. Was Trump right to push back on Netanyahu? Or is he sacrificing Israel's security for a diplomatic deal? Drop your take in the comments. I'm Ilaria Whitcomb, and this is the news nobody is telling you straight. See you next time.